Hello everyone, thanks for joining us again. Today what we're going to be looking at is the transactions report, and this is a handy little summary report that we put together which will break down for you how financial transactions are getting into your system. This little tool can be found under the Commerce panel under Transaction Report, and when you first get to this new interface, you'll have the ability to set your own time frame. By default, the system will populate the current month so that you can get the snapshot for the current month, but you can change this time frame to anything. It could be a year range, it could be a quarterly range. That's completely up to you. The next thing you'll get to do is also filter out any transactions by the type itself. So for example, let's say you only wanted to see checks in the system and how much volume there's been around checks. You'd be able to set that, or any other transaction type that you have available within your system. We're going to leave that as blank for now because we want all the transactions. The second row is going to provide you with three different panes, and the first pane is going to be the type of transaction that has come into the system during the time frame you've selected. So in this case, we can see, and this is just sample data, you can see that we've got 50% checks, 50% credit cards. So it's an equal breakdown of the transactions that have come into the system. The second thing that you'll see here is the paid versus unpaid pane. And here you can see how many transactions have been settled, how many are not settled. And in our case, everything's been settled. There's no amount that's outstanding right now. And our third pane will show us the 6-month history. Within this pane, we can see, what is the trend of our financial situation? Is the cash flow increasing? Is the cash flow decreasing? And at least over the last 6 months. And it will also show you the full amount and the unsettled amount of the transactions as well. And the last pane we're going to be looking at today is the transaction history. The transaction history will give us a day-by-day breakdown, which is expendable as you wish. And clicking on the date will bring up all the transaction details for that particular day. In this case, we only have one transaction per day. So we're seeing a very limited set in here, but we can see in here that the transaction number, the amount, who the buyer was, what the subject line of that transaction is, the reference number, and the type of transaction. And what the system will also do is it will also summarize for us the total amount for that day as well. Clicking on the transaction number will bring us to more detail around that transaction, so it will bring us to that transaction record. And clicking on the buyer will bring us to an interface which will list all the transactions for that particular buyer, and we'll be able to explore a little bit more into the history of this buyer and as we wish. As always, we welcome feedback around the modules that we're adding into the system, whether they're helping, whether they're not helping enough, whether they should help in another fashion. We welcome that feedback, whether by email or phone call, whichever way works better for you. But feel free to always let us know what you feel about the additions that we're making to the system, and we'll see you again shortly.